All right, science time. Everybody have their books? Because we're going to need our books. A lot of your science papers I noticed last week, some of you, again, you did not fill out everything that you needed to do. You need to listen to these videos. If you don't know what's going on, boys and girls, listen to the video again. If you get confused, all you have to do is call me. But there's no excuse to leave blank spots. I want you to write. You are in Mr. Vaughn's class now, and it's time to get working, okay? Because next class is Miss Margaret's. Okay, so in the beginning of the book, you have, of course, you have your worksheet. So get out your worksheet. Don't forget to put your name and date, all right? So get out this worksheet so that we can work on it. There's a few things in here. And then you also have this sheet that you need to pull out. So get this one because you're going to work on this one. And you're also going to do this one. Don't forget your name and date on both. So right now, I'm going to give you 5 seconds. You can pause and write your name and date. All right. So we are going to talk about geology. Okay? Oh yeah, I was thinking about another class, but we're also going to do geography this week too. I was thinking, what's going on? But okay, I got it. So open your books up to the Introduction to Geology. This is going to be page number 12. Introduction to Geology. And let's read together. Now notice on here, I have where it says there's the answers are on these pages. You're going to have to locate the answers and write them on your own. Now notice here as well, I have answer in your own words. Answer in your own words. There's not an answer in the book for that. You have to think about what I'm saying and what we've read, and you have to write down your own answer. So Adrian, yours is going to be different than Samuelito's. Daniela's, yours is going to be different than Jasmine's. Isaias, yours is going to be different than Estrellita's. Samuel Plumley, yours is going to be different than Josiah's. I think I said everybody, right? Okay? You guys, they're all going to be different answers, but they're going to be your answers because what I want you to do is I want you to think. I want you to think through what we're talking about. So let's begin reading. And you know, I like to read out loud. So I'm going to read out loud. When we get back into class, we will take turns reading. We'll have a wonderful time doing that. First thing to know, what is geology and how does it affect us? So your words to know. So what I want you to do right now is pause the video. Wait, don't pause yet. Pause the video. I want you to pause the video and I want you to go into the back of your book, right? Go into the back of your book and I want you to locate in your concordance or your glossary, I want you to locate the definitions of those words and write the definitions here, okay? All the definitions, because the important thing is we define our terms. Defining terms means we know what we're talking about so that when I say geophysics, you'll know exactly what geophysics are. Okay, so I want you to do that first. So go ahead and pause your video right now and do that. All right, hopefully you paused it like you were instructed to and you got your definitions done because those are important as we're reading through here. So basically your words to know are on there. Let's start off with geology. Geology is a study of the planet Earth. That sounds like a question, doesn't it? Actually, that was one of your definitions, right? Okay. So, it is a study of the structures that form the earth. So the structures that form the earth, the process affecting those structures, as well as the physical history of the planet. For example, geologists study, what do they study? Soil, rocks, mountains, volcanoes. They try to locate particular minerals. And I showed you on our board, there's all kinds of minerals at the beginning of the year. They study and try to predict earthquakes. I mean, wouldn't that be nice to know, hey, everybody, there's going to be a humongous earthquake. Everybody get out of the tall, tall buildings, right? Geologists study glaciers and how they move. Now, remember, we talked about what glaciers were. So let's go over here. Let's see if we can figure these out. So here's glaciers. So can you see the glacier? All right. So how do glaciers work? And then we have the minerals, which are over here, right? And I don't think I put a picture of earthquakes, but we do have volcanoes. Okay, but the earth moving is what causes, let me get this situated right. Earth moving is what actually causes earthquakes. So the tectonic plates inside, and we're going to learn about those things. And geologists study the interaction between water, atmosphere, and the Earth's surface. Because did you know that the land and the water is working together, but that it's also affecting the atmosphere? So all these things, God has the Earth perfectly working together. The Earth was perfectly designed by God to support life. What are some of those things that make Earth unique? So what are some of the things that make Earth different from the other planets? Now, when we get into geography this week as well, you'll probably get that video on Wednesday or so. When we get into geography, we're going to study the solar system one more time, real fast before we get into actually the planet Earth. But what makes Earth different than Mars or Venus or Jupiter, right? That's very important, because can we live on Jupiter and Mars and Venus? No, humans can only live on Earth. What are some of the things that makes Earth unique? First, it contains just the right elements. No other place in our solar system has abundant liquid water, which is crucial for supporting life. And that's what they're, like all these trips to Mars that they're taking. You know what they're mainly looking for? Water. Because if you don't have water, within 4 days, you die. In fact, that makes me think, I need to hydrate. If you need to pause your video and go get a drink, stay hydrated, especially with it. Whoops, my book fell. Especially with it so hot out there, we need to make sure that we stay hydrated and we stay healthy. But we have to have water, so scientists look for water. Water is one of the few substances that is less dense after it freezes, allowing ice to form on the surface of the lakes instead of at the bottom. If you took a metal ball and you dropped it, what's going to happen to it in the water? Bam, it's going to go all the way to the bottom, right? But what happens if you take ice and throw ice into water? It floats. Means that ice is not as heavy as water. Now think about how God did this. You have water, you freeze it, and it becomes less heavy, less dense. That's kind of strange, right? It floats. Well, imagine, boys and girls, that you have the land. Let's look at this, right? You have land. I don't have green, but you have land, and here is the water. This is the lake. Now, inside these lakes, what do you have? You have fish. Okay, stop making fun of my fish. Mr. Vaughn can't draw fish, right? But you have fish in there, right? You know what? This needs to be a little bit. I need to make this a little bit bigger so you guys can all of you can see it really well. Let me erase that and do it one more time. I'm going to work at doing things much bigger so y'all can see. There we go. And you have water. And inside the water are fish. Okay, it's funny little fish. Let's make them happy, because happy fish are tasty fish. They have no idea that they're about to get caught, but they're happy because they're just swimming along. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming. What movie is that from? Extra points if you know it. Text it to me. See if you know what movie that's from. So they're in the water. All of a sudden, the summer's gone. It's cold. And what happens to the top of the water? It freezes. Now in your refrigerator, you put ice in there, the whole thing freezes. But lakes are so big, God's designed it so just the top layer freezes, so that all these fish can do what? They can still swim, they can still breathe underwater, they still have oxygen in the water, but the top freezes. And see, it's because it's not as dense as water, so this ice doesn't just fall down to the bottom and crush all the fish. And then the top layer would freeze and fall to the bottom, the top layer would freeze. Eventually, what would happen? Eventually, the whole lake would freeze and all the fish would be dead, and nobody could go fishing there anymore. Because every winter, all the fish would die again, and they have no time to reproduce, no time to have more little fish so we can catch them, right? But God designed it that way. And sometimes the ice can become so thick. I've actually seen this before. Ice becomes so thick that cars can drive on top of the ice. Stop laughing at my drawings. Cars can actually drive on top of the ice. But then sometimes it can be so thin. Have you ever seen in movies where they're walking and all of a sudden they see the ice start to do what? Starts to crack. And then sometimes they fall through the ice breaks, and the person falls. And they're like, ah! These guys are not happy. They're like, ah! And they're trying to bang against the top of the ice to get out. They're like, let me out! But they can't scream. Like, right? Banging onto the ice. Okay? But that's something that's interesting about the earth, is that the water freezes and the ice on the top doesn't sink to the bottom. It stays on the top. So allowing ice to form on the surface of the lakes instead of on the bottom, from the bottom up. So fish and other aquatic life can survive the freezing cold. So it freezes from here like this. It doesn't freeze down here and go up, killing all of the fish. Water is nearly a universal dissolver, allowing most chemical reactions to occur. The Earth is also the only planet that has just the right amount of oxygen in the atmosphere to support life. Too little oxygen, and we would suffocate. Too much, and fires would burn out of control. Right? Because you know what? If fires use oxygen to burn, and if there's way too much oxygen, it'll cause the fire, because the fire burns, and it'll burn it. The Earth was just the right mass to give us the needed gravity. Gravity holds the atmosphere around our planet so that we can breathe and have protection from the extreme temperatures of space. Have you ever seen people in movies, people got into space and something happens and all of a sudden they freeze? They're like, their suit breaks, all of a sudden they get frozen, they're like floating because it's cold in space. But what happens is we have the atmosphere around our Earth which holds in the temperatures so that those cold temperatures don't come in. The sun shines in, it warms our planet, it keeps the right temperature. All right? It's the mass, it's the size of the Earth is the mass. The size of the Earth is just the right size for all that to happen. Gravity provides the needed air pressure for our bodies to function properly. Do you know they say that there's astronauts who spend a lot of time in space, when they come back, their bodies, they get old, their bodies get older faster because in space there's not all the gravity and it affects their bodies differently. Gravity is important even for our bodies. Now notice this, the Earth is just the right distance from the sun and has just the right rotation to support life. So the rotation means how it goes around. Right? It's able to rotate around the sun at just the right time. And you remember, Mr. Plumley, when the Earth rotates around the sun, that's what determines what our summer, our fall, our winter, right? And our spring. What would happen if we never had spring, if we always had winter, if the Earth just stayed in one spot and we all had winter in one side of the planet the whole time? Would we be able to survive? Of course not. So God made the Earth revolve around the sun just the right amount and just the right time to provide seed time and harvest time, to provide the spring and the fall and the winter and all that, and the summer. If the Earth were closer to the sun, all the water would boil away. If it were further away, all the water would freeze. The tilt of the Earth and its revolution around the sun allow for seasons which provide the needed growing time for all the foods we consume, right? It allows us to be able to grow our foods like we need to. But just imagine if the Earth was just a little bit closer to the sun than it is. Imagine what would happen. It'd be so hot. And if it was too far away, it'd be so cold. That's why you can't live on Pluto. It's so far away and it's so cold there. Everything freezes. But in Venus or Mars, or Venus and Mercury, which are closer to the sun, it's so hot, right? You couldn't live there either. All of these special features did not just happen by chance. Listen to this, they were the result of a loving God who wanted to create a wonderful world for us. See, God gave us this world so we could live. He didn't give us this world so we could die, right? He created it so we could live. Now notice here, it says, for what was the earth perfectly designed? And then here, what are 3 things about the earth that make it a unique planet? So in there were quite a few things. So I want you to choose 3 of those things that we talked about and write 3 of those things. I put number 4. You only have to, I put 4 on here. You just have to write 3. I messed up on there. So you can cross out number 4 if you want to. So write 3 things. If you want to write 4 things, I'll give you extra credit. That means you get more points for writing 4 things. And I'll put maybe I can put a sticker on your paper if you write 4. But write 4 things out of there that make the earth unique, make it a unique planet. Okay? You may not think geology is important to you, but geology affects your life in many ways every day. The nutrients and the minerals in your food are a result of geology. Metals are used to make things you use every day, like tools, cars, and buildings. Petroleum, which is oil, is used to make gasoline to power your car. It's used to make many plastic items around your house. Sand is used to make glass. I mean, imagine in the windows. We have glass in there, right? Right here, I got those windows are made of sand or have sand in them. Look at this thing. This is metal, right? The thing I'm working on. This is made out of metal. That's a mineral, right? So all these minerals, we use them every single day. When you get in your car and you drive, you're using the oil so you can drive. You're using the minerals that God has provided. And glaciers or sand is used to make glass, not to mention sand castles. How many of you ever gone to the beach and made a sand castle? And glaciers carved many of the mountains passes that we see. So you can't avoid geology. Geology affects us every day. So right here, it's got a question. Why is geology important to you? So I want you to write your own thoughts, your own sentences as to why geology is important to you. Well, how does it affect your life? Okay? How do you use it? And then number 5, how does geology show the power of God? So I want you to think about that. I want you to look at that and think about, how does geology show God's power? Because when we look in nature, the Bible says that all of creation shows forth God's glory. So how does geology show the power of God? I mean, I can think of a couple ways. One of the ways, and you can't use this now, is God's diversity. God has minerals. God has all kinds of minerals, oil, there's the sand. We just went through a lot of things. He has so many different types of things that help us. It shows his power. God doesn't just have to use one thing. He can use millions of things. Man, God is so powerful. If geology really interests you, consider learning more about one of the following. Physical geology, which is a study of land formations and rocks. And we're going to study some of that. Geophysics, which is a study, you should know these because you already did the definition, which is a study of the Earth's magnetic field, heat flow, gravity, seismic waves, and the Earth's core. So we're going to talk about the Earth's core a little bit. So the Earth's core is this, right? At the very center of the Earth. That's the core. And we got different layers of the Earth. And we're going to learn about some of those. All right. Get me sit back up here. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? And mineralogy, the study of minerals in the Earth's crust, moon rocks, crystals. How many of you ever gone to the store and seen a crystal? I used to like those when I was little. Sedimentology and paleontology, the study of sediments, deposits, and fossils. So we're going to study about that, but what happens is if you dig deep enough, and I'll show you some pictures when we get to it, there's different layers of the Earth, right? The Earth has different layers. Some kind of layer, a different layer, a different layer, a different layer, and a different layer. All right. So we're going to see how those work out. All right. And we're going to study a little bit of all of these kind of things, but these are things that you can look out. Now I want you to get out this page. Okay. These are all the elements. Now we'll talk more about this, and if we were here, we'd watch a video. I'm going to see if I can even send out a video, but we're going to talk more about these elements as time passes. But everything on Earth is made. Drop my paper. Everything is made from basic building blocks. How many of you have Legos? You have to have different kinds of Legos, right? You have the Legos that are this big with like the 6 points. You have Legos like this with the 4 points. You have Legos like this which have the 2 points. You have Legos like this which has the 1, right? You have the long ones. All kinds of different Legos. Those are the building blocks. If you didn't have these, how would you build anything? God's the same way. These are God's Legos. He puts these things together, and man can take different things together as well and put these together and make other things also. So everything on Earth is made from the basic building blocks called elements. These are the elemental chart, okay? Or the periodic table of the elements is actually what it's called. You can learn about the elements by studying a periodic table of the elements. Some of the elements you already learned about. We didn't do the scavenger hunt, okay? Because we needed to be here for that. The first 92 elements listed on the periodic table are naturally occurring on Earth. So 92 of these, God designed those, okay? So you start over here and you go all the way up to number 92, and all those were made by God. Those are in the earth, ready, being used, okay? The rest are man-made. So what they did, so the other ones are they've taken different things and put them together to make up their own elements. So man has been able to use what God made to make something. Now God made something out of nothing, but man made something out of something, right? Always got to remember that. So I want you to look at the periodic table on the next page and study it. So look here. Here's our periodic table. They've got a really nice one. Now notice here, let me get close. Notice here that the alkaline ones are this color. The alkali earth metals are this color. The transition metals are this color. And then you got the metalloids. What are these? These are man-made here. They took several of these and put them together. Okay? And so they're all color coordinated. Now what I want you to do is I want you to look at this chart. And right here, I want you to take this chart and I want you to color your own chart. So make sure that you do the right numbers in the right places. Okay, so look at the color, look at how they have their colors, and you do the same thing on your paper. All right? Make sure you look at it well. Okay, finishing up here. As we mentioned earlier, the food you eat contains minerals or elements that are found in the crust of the earth. Look at the labels on your food in your kitchen and see how many elements you can find. So what you can do is if you want to look at some of these, it's probably clearer in your book. But if you look on these, you can see stuff like potassium. So look right here. Here you got something called sodium. Sodium is like salt. So go look at a box of food, and if you look, you can see sodium, magnesium, potassium, calcium. All right, these things are in your foods. So go grab a box of food, like maybe some hamburger helper, or a box of macaroni and cheese, or the ramen noodles, and look on the back to see if you can find some of these names. So for today, for your science, that's what I want you to do. You're going to answer all these questions. Remember, I want these two right here done in your own words. So why is geology important to you? You tell me why you think geology is important to you. And how does geology show the power of God? Write it here. Number 6 is look at page 14 and copy the periodic table. So then you're going to also color this one. So this needs to come back on Friday, all colored in, and make sure you color these colors in to match what it is on page 14. And you're going to turn this page in on Friday as well. All right, that is the introduction to geology. Next week, we're going to study about next lesson. We're going to study about the, what is it called? The history. Let's see, where did I put? Oh, the Earth's history. So we're going to do chapter 3 later this week. All right, boys and girls, get working. If you have questions, be sure to call me. Remember, leave nothing blank. Even if you're not sure what to write, at least just write some idea. It's okay. I want to see what you're thinking. All right, bye.